Hello everyone, today is Thursday, December 3rd. As always, I'm your host for Collectibles and Coffee, Edward Gwynn. I don't have a beverage with me today, so we'll just get right into it. There's a fair amount of announcements today. Some of the things that dropped, news mostly towards 2021. Today, just going to do a really short, quick episode just to kind of break down those things, do a brief analysis on them. The first item that dropped today, Shining Fates. This is an announcement by Pokemon. This is looking towards the February set. This will be the special set. This will be the analog to Shiny Star V that I had showed a few days ago. This is kind of their special set. This is going to be the English version of that Japanese set. So this is something that will be hitting the market on February 19th. And then in March, there will actually be a regular Pokemon set that would impact standard, etc., coming out a month later. Just so to the announcement said that they didn't want to overwhelm the market by having too many products released at once. So February 19th, mark that on your calendar. That is the date for Shining Fates. It is important to note that there is a bit of difference between the two for people who may be a little bit newer to this and not quite as familiar. The biggest difference is that Japanese sets and English sets don't always have a one-for-one translation. This is not necessarily just taking the Japanese set, translating it, and turning it into an English set. There are some fairly big differences. Usually the biggest difference is that the English set tends to be a little bit smaller. There's not quite as many cards printed into the set. By necessity, some cards won't be omitted, some cards will be left out, they just won't make it into the printing. This is normal. This isn't something that is unique to this set. If we look back to Hidden Fates, the set from last year, if we look at the numbers, Hidden Fates had 69 regular cards inside the set. And then there was a separate set that had the shiny vault cards. That's where the Charizard comes from with that unique foiling process. There were 94 of those cards. So it's two of those together. That is 153 cards total. Is that right? 69, 71, 163 cards total inside the set. If we compare that to the Japanese version of GX Shiny, Ultra Shiny, there were 150 regular cards and 100 secret cards in the set. So some amount of cards kind of got shrunk down and lost. The purpose of the Japanese version, it is meant as a reprint set, so it is a little bit different in that sense, but many of the iconic cards, the shiny Charizard, made it over. So there is definitely it is something to consider. If you are a collector, there is merit to buying both. I know a lot of people that do buy the shiny Star V set. For me, people do like the different style of Japanese cards. They do feel like the quality is a little bit nicer. They do feel a little bit different. Again, there's kind of that unique set of cards that won't make it to the English version. So some people do like that. And of course, when the English versions come out, people will be all over that. These sets have been very, very popular. Hidden Fates did very well. Eventually, they did come back and reprint it. That really goes to show how much demand there is for that product. I don't suspect that this will be any different. So if you want it, I would suggest getting a pre-order in. Talk to your local game store. Maybe go look at GameStops. Maybe do some shopping online. I would encourage you to start with your local game store first. See what they can do. See what they can offer you. But one of the most important things to be aware of this is that if you're placing a large order, your order is more likely to be canceled. If you just want to be collecting, if you just want to be maybe putting a few of these away, start out buying one or two, but ask a bunch of different game stores, a bunch of different places, diversify, because there were some people who thought they would get lucky with Champions Path, the set that came out in September. They tried to put a huge pre-order in with GameStop, maybe their local game store, and then when it became very clear that there was going to be initial shortage with how many people were going out and buying these, they had a lot of the big orders were canceled, especially for retailers who are trying to fulfill as many small orders as possible rather than fulfill one large order. Even though it's a little bit more profitable to sell everything to one person, you're making a lot more happy. If you're only getting 10 boxes in, you're better off trying to send 10 boxes to 10 different people as opposed to one person buying up all 10 boxes. This is the type of product that is going to be heavily contested. I imagine going to big box stores, Walmart, Target, what have you, there will be a bunch of people who are going to be there and ready to buy them right away on Friday morning, what have you, when the vendor comes to restock. So if you want this, you want to guarantee that you're going to have it, get your pre-orders in now. Again, step one, I would start with your local game store. If you like what they do, support their business, order from them first, see if they can try and get you some product in early and at a reasonable price if you lock in the order and if you're ready to make a payment now. I know that does give you some leverage depending on the game store. Some stores do appreciate being able to float that little bit of extra money by taking pre-order money now and then eventually having to deliver a product at a later time. That is something that you could possibly leverage to your advantage. Just be aware that this is, again, going to be a product that is going to be highly sought after. Do take some caution though if you are looking to invest in this. If this is something you think will be a possible long-term hold for you, what you want to do is you want to make sure that let's back up. If you're looking to invest and this is going to be a long-term hold for you, that's great. If you're not looking to cash out for 5 years, maybe that's your target. Maybe you're happy to buy a case of this, put in the shelf, forget about for 5 years and wait until prices go up dramatically. That's great. You won't need to be fighting right away at the start, because the majority of the people who are going to be fighting for it at the start are going to be flippers, people who are lining up at Walmart and at Target to try and buy it at 7:01 a.m. or whenever your store opens, 8:01, trying to buy up all the stock and then sell it for a markup right away. We're all familiar with these flippers, scalpers, whatever you want to call them, whatever your opinion on them is. I'm not really concerned with that. Everyone has their own opinion on them. I'm not really looking to start that debate. If you're looking to get day one, you are most likely going to be paying a premium unless you are lucky to get there and be one of the few people who got it right away, or maybe you got it from a pre-order through your local game store, what have you. You're probably going to be paying a premium. Not everyone has access to them. Not everyone is able to take the day off. Most people do have work. If it's coming out Friday, for example, people will have to work. People will have to put off buying these, and then people may be forced to turn to the secondary market, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, etc., to get their product. If you're looking to invest and you want to put some amount of this product away for 5 years or whatever your timeline is, I would wait. I think if Pokemon learned anything coming off of the back of Champion's Path, they should be well aware that there is going to be increased demand on this product. People know that it is going to be a moneymaker. There's going to be a lot of people buying for any multitude of reasons, and then it is almost assured that down the line, they will have a reprint. They will reprint this product and make it available again. If we look at Hidden Fates, exact same thing. People were hyped up about Hidden Fates. It did really well in the secondary market. It was very, very hard to find in stock for quite some time. And then Pokemon dropped the bomb that this is going to be reprinted. If you're looking at this from an investment perspective, be careful. That second wave is going to hit you hard. But if you're not thinking about moving this product for 5 years anyways, and this is the type of product that you want to be sitting on, that you want to be holding until it goes up, you don't need to go out and rush and buy day one. If you're waiting for 5 years, it doesn't matter if you buy it on February 19th, March 19th, or October 19th. Buy in whenever it makes sense for you to do so. If you do want it to open right away, then you're obviously going to be fighting with the rest of the people. But if you're okay waiting, you could probably find the product you're more likely to be able to find the product at MSRP down the line as opposed to trying to get it day one. And that's really where you have to pick your battle. If you can afford to be patient, you're more likely going to be rewarded for it. One of the things that they've also done, very, very similar to what Champion's Fate, what they did with Champion's Fate was that rather than have all the product hit the market at the same time, they're slowly going to trickle this out of the market. It is important to note that because this is kind of a unique set, very similar to Hidden Fates, there are actually no booster boxes for this product. All the product that is available comes in various box sets. So we have Elite Trainer boxes. That's really kind of the the key item here, the one that people are going to be looking for the most. That one comes out on February 19th, along with some others. We have box sets, pin sets, tins. All these things contain some amount of hidden Shining Fates booster packs. So if you want them, you're going to have to buy them and be opening up these products. There's no booster boxes available. So Elite Trainer boxes, tins, box sets, these various items are going to slowly trickle out over time. I think there were 2 separate release dates for these to come out. So really that's going to be your method for buying them. I imagine over the course of the year, there'll probably be box sets where they have 1 or 2 of these packs nested inside as well. Possibly, I think Pokemon, as mentioned, is much more aware of how much demand there is going on for these. They're probably facing a lot of unhappy customers who simply could not get the product because the product sold out so quickly. This is something to be cognizant of. This is something to be aware of for going forward and trying to pick what you do with the product and where you can get in and invest. There will always be more on this as we get closer and closer to date. It's a little bit more than 2 months away at this point. This is something that I'm sure I'll bring up again and again as we get more information about it and as we have a better idea of what the hits are of the set and what's being left out. That could also create some opportunities for possible arbitrage or a place for you to buy in. All that remains to be seen. Right now, 2 months away, just a lot of speculation, so we'll hold off on that, other than the information that we know about what is in front of us. The second topic that I do want to touch on today is, for those of you who may not have followed, some of you may have already seen this, Warner Brothers. They made an announcement earlier this morning. The majority of the announcement basically says that the 17 movies that they have slated to release next year in 2021, they will basically be offering it direct on their streaming service. I believe HBO was the one. Direct on their streaming service the exact same day that these will be released in movie theaters. So this is a pretty big deal. For decades, basically, since moviegoing has been an American pastime, or a pastime around the world, as it were, people have always waited for release days for the new movies, and midnight releases have been a thing. That's been something that I believe they've kind of shifted away from following the shooting in Colorado in 2012, I want to say. I can't remember the exact time on that. But this has basically been a model that's basically in place for a while. Movie producers, Warner Brothers, Fox, what have you, all of them, they'll release a movie, they'll license out to their movie theaters, various movie theaters, and then they have a certain amount of time where they can basically showcase the film inside the theater before it becomes available to consumer via streaming service, DVDs, Blu-ray, what have you. This is really the first time that model has been broken. This is something that has obviously caused a pretty big alarm for movie theater owners. This is something that is going to be a pretty big shift. And I think this is just one example. To be clear, I don't necessarily care about this. I'm not really a movie person myself. Watching movies isn't really something I do. This doesn't impact me, but the important thing to take away here is that it is very clear that Warner Brothers, and I'm sure others are going to start following suit, they are taking methods to prepare themselves in the event that the pandemic lasts longer than expected, if they expect it to get worse before it gets better, if we don't maybe see movie theaters really become as popular again as they have in the past due to spacing restrictions, what have you. You obviously can't have a packed theater anymore with the current state. So we have to see what that looks like going forward in 2021. And here, Warner Brothers is basically trying to get ahead of that. They're already thinking ahead, and they're thinking, what happens if this gets worse before it gets better? What happens if there's issues with the supply chain for the COVID vaccine? What happens if all these what ifs? We obviously can't predict the future, but it's very clear that by taking this step, they're ensuring themselves that if they can get into the consumer's pocket by offering this direct to consumer via their streaming service. If they can still get into their consumer's pocket by getting their streaming subscription fee, whatever, they're still able to profit from this, as opposed to having to rely on a movie theater to basically distribute their film in the event that the movie theater industry is not really able to rebound due to all these restrictions. They're still able to insulate themselves. This is important, and this is something that I think most of us should be able to take note, regardless of how you feel about the COVID pandemic, regardless of your optimism, if you think it's going to get better, how if the vaccine is really going to be as successful as it is. We can't see these things. If you recall back to March and April, people were predicting that this would be something that will blow over quickly. Everyone will be locked down. Things will go back to normal. If we see where we are right now, the U.S. record number of cases. I obviously don't need to dwell too much into the news. If you've been following the news, this is the reality of where we are right now. People are expecting that with Christmas, it's going to continue to get worse as more people are going to try and get huddled up, especially having a lot more indoor environments. We don't really have outdoor eating now, so places that are restaurants, if they do want to be open, it's basically all going to be indoor dining. These are all things to be to consider, and whatever you do, I think having a plan for 2021 is important. I think for people out there, the retailers who listen to this, I think it is important to note that you should be prepared for both. Maybe the COVID vaccine takes off. It's great. We can start looking at normalcy by June or so. If the vaccine is able to be widely distributed and it works, great. We can start looking at a real reopening and normalcy happening down the line. But we can't rule out the alternative, because there's all these what ifs that we can't account for. And as a business, as a retailer, you have to be able to insulate yourself against that. And so some of the things that I know a lot of people have been talking about, maybe if they haven't considered it already, that they need to account for is, if you're going to be ready to open, what is that going to look like? And when are you going to open? I know that we've had a few store owners who've talked to us. I know I've talked with a few people. Some people just feel like they aren't ready to open. They're looking to ramp up their online business. They're looking to expand as an online retailer. They're not ready to have people come into their store yet or use their event space, simply because they are trying to protect their workers. They're trying to protect their staff and make sure that people are safe and able to work safely without having to add the extra element of stress on top. These are all things for retailers to consider. These are all things for businesses to consider. I realize that a lot of people feel like they may not have the luxury to do so. They may not be able to pull in enough business online to be able to keep themselves afloat strictly that way. This is something that retailers, I think, have to be able to account individually for themselves, because I think there is a very, very real possibility that is going to get much worse before it gets better, especially in the winter months. January traditionally is not a particularly good retail month for a lot of people. It's coming off the holiday season. A lot of people aren't really spending money. People aren't looking to spend money the same way they would be in November into December. Usually, we don't really see breaks until people start looking at tax returns in March or April. When people start getting their taxes back, maybe people have a small windfall as a way to potentially be spending more. So for a lot of retailers, January is really a hunker down. Let's minimize our spending. Let's only spend what we need to. Let's make sure we're doing what we can to be as profitable as possible. These are all things to consider. And if we consider how bad January could be, with potentially probably some of the worst stages of this epidemic, it's really, really, really going to be a huge damper for people. And it's really going to put a lot of strain on retailers that are probably already strained for the majority of this year. If they've been doing well, then they may be facing a dip, and that's going to put strain on them if they haven't already been experiencing it. These are all things to consider just going forward into 2021. I just happen to be using the Warner Brothers announcement as an example of an industry, of a business that is really trying to get ahead of that. If they know that if they're faced with the possibility, as mentioned, that theaters won't be open or theaters are going to be in diminished capacity, what have you, there's another way around this. Let's take our business in a different direction. Let's make sure that instead of getting revenue from movie theaters, we're now generating our revenue from subscription services directly from the consumer. As a retailer, I think looking at these alternative options is something you should consider. I've mentioned this in the past. If you haven't looked at e-commerce as a reliable stream of revenue for your business, start doing so. If you already have an online business in place, maybe start considering, how can I ramp this up? How can I make my business more efficient? How can I make it better? How can I generate more sales online? Start thinking about all these things, because as mentioned, even if the COVID vaccine works, it's unlikely we'll see normalcy for quite some time. Is your business able to handle 6 months of diminished sales? A lot of people have been saying that their sales have been good, that people have performed well over the past few quarters. Sales have been good mainly because the collectible industry really has been booming. Things have really done well in terms of sales. Things have gotten more expensive. There's been more demand, especially on the Pokemon front. All these things. But if you look at the number overall, I believe from the majority of retailers that I've spoken to, if you look at year over year, a lot of people are probably doing the same, maybe slightly worse compared to where they were before. So trying to get another boon, another way of growing your business, is something that is probably going to be more relevant this year than ever, because as mentioned in past few videos, if you're able to get ahead of the curve, if you're able to get ahead of other retailers, if you're able to do things that other retailers aren't, going into 2021, especially when and if normalcy starts to return in the relatively near future, that's really going to give you a leg up ahead of the competition, and that's exactly where you want to be. So these are just things to consider. I think there is a little bit of consideration for everyone, no matter how big or small you are. If you're a collector, if you're an investor, if you're a retailer, trying to get ahead of this curve is, I think, an important overarching formula that everyone should be taking into account ahead of 2021, because if you are able to get ahead of the curve, I think there is a lot of opportunity for you to get ahead and make profitable decisions that are going to be beneficial for you, especially in the very, very near future, mainly because times are so uncertain right now. If we just simply look back, if you're in position to capitalize back in March, in April, in May, before things had really started to explode, you would be doing very well. And I think this is kind of a takeaway. It is important to note that we can't use the history to guarantee future results. Just because it worked then is not a surefire sign. I'm just taking some advice for myself and trying to present to you based on what we've seen this year. And it is possible that some of these things could be happening sooner rather than later. And by being ahead of that is probably going to be in your best interest. Again, no matter where you are, you don't need to be a full-on business. You don't need to be owning a game store. If you're looking to invest, there are a lot of opportunities to make money. If you're looking to collect, this is probably the best time to buy now versus later, before prices start popping off again. All these things, time is really of the essence. The year is getting to a close, and if you watch my last episode about Now We Buy, really encourage you to take things to heart and figure out what you want to be added to your portfolio, what you want to be added to your collection. Find a spot where you're okay spending that amount of money, whatever that money is, and then getting ahead before it becomes too late. And I really don't mean to incite FOMO. I think some people are going to interpret this the wrong way and look at this and just kind of blow out a proportion and think that they need to go out and buy everything they can before everything just explodes in price. That's not the case. I, again, don't want to be inciting FOMO to anyone. There is no missing out to be had. You should not feel like you need to go out there and spend all your money and make reckless financial decisions. That's just as bad as waiting too long. Do your research. Do what makes sense for you, your business, your portfolio, and spend your money in the right spots. That is really something that is going to help you in the long term. On the topic of that, it is important to note that the PWCC Marketplace, there are over 3,200 listings this month for Pokemon. I think this is more than we've ever seen. If we consider the fact that in order for items to make it into the December auction batch, these would have had to be submitted in October, probably by the end of October. And PWCC does require about a month turnaround to be able to presumably catalog, photograph, generate eBay listings, all these things. So if these things were coming back in October, we can see that there's definitely a huge surge of people who got their cards graded, who are looking to turn around and sell them. There is a lot of them on eBay right now. I've only started to go through some listings. I think there's actually it's a little bit different time. There's actually two separate batches. There's a batch that just went live today. It's ending in about 10 days from today. And then there's a second batch that's going to go live a little bit later in the month. So I'll probably make a separate episode, go through, review some of the things that are worth considering. Maybe there's a opportunity to buy there. But as mentioned, if you're looking to invest or collect, do your research, find out what you want. Maybe there are some auctions in here that are interesting to you. Maybe you find something that's cool that goes into your collection. As an investor, maybe you think that, hey, this card seems underpriced. Maybe if I can get it for this price, I'm happy to buy it and just set it aside and see what it does in the next 3, 6, 12 months or even longer. So I think it is something that's worth considering. I'll probably make a separate episode about that. Just kind of scrolling through PWCC, looking at some of the more interesting cards and seeing what opportunities there are to make money. So with that, I realized it was a little bit short of an episode. Just want to keep things kind of focused on the two topics today, just Shining Fates and Warner Brothers announcement specifically, and trying to get some retailers ahead of the curve in terms of what decisions they should make going forward. So with that, as always, you can find me on Twitter at Edwin13. You can find the social media sites for Vermilion on the right. As always, thank you for listening. Wherever you are in the world, stay safe, and we'll be back tomorrow with more. Thanks again.